Welcome to the Shocking History Photos channel, where the past comes alive through stunning and jaw-dropping images. Some events are so powerful, they change everything. Captured on camera, these 10 devastating historical events show just how fragile life is and how strong humanity can be. Watch as these shocking moments unfold before your eyes. World War I, also known as the Great War, was the first true global conflict, pulling soldiers from all over the world into the trenches. With new weapons like machine guns, tanks, and poison gas, the battlefield became deadlier than ever. Over 16 million people lost their lives, and many more came home with life-changing injuries or psychological scars known as shell shock. War photographers captured haunting images of soldiers trapped in muddy trenches, their faces exhausted and their bodies scarred. The harsh conditions, filled with rats, disease, and constant fear, left permanent marks on those who survived. The war's effects didn't end on the battlefield. The Treaty of Versailles set the stage for World War II and the rise of Hitler, while the collapse of major empires and the Bolshevik Revolution reshaped the political landscape of Europe. World War I showed how unchecked nationalism and militarism can lead to catastrophic destruction. The Hindenburg, a huge German airship representing pre-war optimism, went up in flames while trying to land in Lakehurst, New Jersey. It was filled with hydrogen as it caught fire in mid-air and crashed 200 feet in just 34 seconds, with 97 people on board. The disaster claimed 35 lives, and the burning frame shattered public faith in airship travel, which had once been seen as the future of air transportation. Journalist Herbert Morrison's emotional radio broadcast, "Oh, the Humanity," and Thomas Craven's newsreel footage eternalized the horror of the event, bringing the tragedy to millions of listeners and viewers. The images of the burning airship, shown worldwide, warned of the dangers of overconfidence in technology, as many had previously believed that airships were a safe mode of travel. The Hindenburg disaster also raised questions about the use of hydrogen, which was highly flammable and resulted in the fire's rapid spread. Even as the Hindenburg's flames faded, darker forces were rising in Europe, setting the stage for history's most systematic genocide. The event became a symbol of the dangers of unchecked progress and the volatile world that would soon be engulfed by the Second World War. Adolf Hitler's rise to power in 1933 marked the beginning of a brutal campaign of anti-Semitism and racial purity. The Nazis built concentration camps like Auschwitz, where millions of Jews, Roma, disabled individuals, and other marginalized groups were subjected to forced labor, medical experiments, and mass murder. The camps were designed for systematic extermination, with gas chambers and crematoria used to kill and dispose of victims. By 1945, 6 million Jews and 5 million others had been exterminated, leaving entire families and communities destroyed. Nazi photographers initially documented these atrocities to dehumanize victims, but their images later became irrefutable evidence of the Third Reich's crimes. The photographs, showing skinny prisoners, executions, and mass graves, were later used in trials to hold the Nazis accountable. Footage from camps like Majdanek and Auschwitz, showing starving survivors and piles of belongings, shocked the world and revealed the true scale of the Holocaust. The discovery of these camps helped the Allied forces understand the extent of the genocide. The Holocaust's horrors unfolded against the backdrop of World War II, a conflict that redefined global power and introduced nuclear terror. The destruction of the Holocaust remains a powerful reminder of the dangers of unchecked hatred and totalitarianism. Hitler's invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, ignited World War II, a brutal conflict that claimed 70 to 85 million lives worldwide. Cameras documented both heroism and horror, such as the miracle of Dunkirk, where British and Allied forces managed to evacuate from France despite overwhelming odds. The Tuskegee Airmen's bravery as they fought for freedom abroad while facing racial segregation at home. And the Soviet liberation of Auschwitz, where the world first learned of the full extent of Nazi atrocities. But no image expressed the war's moral complexity more than the atomic bombing of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. A US military camera captured the bomb's blast wave, flattening the city, killing 80,000 instantly and exposing thousands more to radiation, leading to long-term suffering and deaths. The shocking images of the explosion and its aftermath made people face the deadly power of war, a fear that continued during the Cold War as nuclear weapons shaped global politics. The decision to use the atomic bomb remains a subject of deep ethical debate, with many questioning whether it was necessary to end the war or whether it marked the beginning of a new, more dangerous era. While World War II officially ended with Japan's surrender on September 2, 1945, one of its opening acts, the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, remains deeply engraved in American memory as a symbol of surprise and devastation. The surprise Japanese strike on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, pushed the United States into World War II. Amateur filmmakers Ada and Harold Oberg captured the chaos, documenting the devastating attack as battleships like the USS Arizona were swallowed up in flames, fighters bombard airfields, and sailors rushing through the chaos of explosions. More than 2,400 Americans died, and countless others were injured. The attack shattered the belief in isolationism that had been prevalent in America since the Great Depression, compelling the nation to take part in global conflicts. President Franklin D. Roosevelt's speech the following day jolted the nation, calling it a date which will live in infamy. But the footage of burning ships became a rallying cry for the American public, proof that America could no longer stand apart from the world's conflicts. As the US entered the war with full force, more people joined the military and the country mobilized to become a major global power. The post-war era brought hope and reconstruction, with Americans eager to rebuild and embrace a new world order. However, televised tragedies, such as the Korean War and later the Vietnam War, soon reminded Americans of their vulnerability, as images of combat and civilian suffering brought the brutal realities of war into living rooms across the country. These tragic broadcasts marked the beginning of a new relationship between the media and war. President John F. Kennedy's assassination in Dallas on November 22, 1963, was the first major tragedy to be broadcast live on television, forever altering the way people experienced national events. Abraham Zapruder's 26-second film captured the fatal headshot, and in those fleeting moments, the nation watched as Kennedy was struck down. The footage turned a personal loss into a national tragedy. As the country mourned, the image of Jacqueline Kennedy, standing strong in her husband's blood-stained clothes at Lyndon B. Johnson's swearing-in, became a symbol of perseverance. The event not only shook the nation, but also started conspiracy theories that persisted till date, raising doubts about the official story of the assassination. It ended America's post-war innocence, smashing the security and optimism that followed World War II. The shockwaves of Kennedy's death also gave the way for societal and political disruption throughout the 60s. 2 decades later, another televised disaster, the Watergate scandal, would further hit public trust in government, leading to President Richard Nixon's resignation. These events started a new era of doubt and distrust in American politics. The Space Shuttle Challenger's disintegration, 73 seconds after liftoff on January 28, 1986, stunned the nation and left a deep scar in the hearts of Americans. Cameras captured the heart-wrenching scene as smoke billowed into the sky, splitting into strange tendrils, symbolizing the dangers of unchecked ambition and the risks of space exploration. Among the 7 crew members tragically lost was Krista McAuliffe, a high school teacher chosen to motivate students and bring the excitement of space exploration to classrooms across the nation. Her death and that of her fellow crew members left the nation in grief. Investigations disclosed preventable engineering flaws, including the failure of O-rings in the shuttle's solid rocket boosters, which led to the disaster. This disclosure turned the tragedy into a harsh lesson about accountability, reminding the public of the risks involved in pioneering ventures. For Generation X, the Challenger disaster became a defining "where were you" moment, as it was a shared experience that shaped their worldview. As the nation started to heal, there was a renewed focus on safety and accountability in space missions. However, just over 15 years later, the nation would face a tragedy that would redefine national security, 9/11, shifting the country's priorities once again and changing the course of history. The attacks on the World Trade Center, Pentagon, and Flight 93 on September 11, 2001 were captured in real time by news crews and bystanders, creating an unforgettable visual record of one of the most shocking days in American history. Footage showed planes striking the towers, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the sky. Firefighters rushed toward the flames, many of whom would later lose their lives, while dust-covered survivors fled lower Manhattan. Stunned by the scale of the devastation, the fall of the Twin Towers killed 2,977 people, including first responders and civilians, and left countless others physically and emotionally scarred. The attacks also triggered the War on Terror, with the US launching military operations in Afghanistan and later Iraq. These raw, unedited images symbolized a loss of invulnerability, as America's sense of security was shattered. The nation united in grief, but the attacks also exposed significant holes in national security, highlighting susceptibility that many had previously overlooked. Additionally, the tragedy revealed deep divisions in tolerance and sparked a rise in hate crimes against Muslim Americans and other minority groups. Just 4 years later, nature would deliver another blow, as Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast, exposing systemic failures in the government's ability to respond to disaster and leaving thousands of families displaced. Both events reshaped America's sense of identity and responsibility on the world stage. Katrina's impact on New Orleans revealed deep racial and economic unfairness that had been building for years. The failure of the levees, which were supposed to protect the city from flooding, led to fatal damage, submerging 80% of the city underwater and trapping thousands of residents in filthy, overcrowded shelters. News helicopters filmed residents stranded on rooftops, waving desperately for help, while amateur videos showed chaotic and heartbreaking scenes of overcrowded crowds at the Superdome, many without food or water. Over 1,800 people died as a result of the storm, and the federal government's slow and disorganized response became a national shame. The delayed aid and government failures exposed serious problems in disaster response. Katrina's aftermath showed how poorer, mostly black neighborhoods were hit the hardest. It also highlighted what happens when people ignore weak infrastructure and those who need help the most. 15 years later, the world would face a different kind of crisis, as the COVID-19 pandemic tested the nation's resilience once more, this time through a lens of collective isolation and uncertainty. The COVID-19 pandemic, the most documented health crisis in history, unfolded on screens worldwide, with images and videos shared in real time as the virus spread across the globe. In the early days, videos from Wuhan's overwhelmed hospitals, where doctors and nurses worked tirelessly, gave the world a glimpse into the chaos. In New York, refrigerated morgue trucks lined the streets to hold the bodies of the deceased, while Zoom funerals became the new way to say goodbye. By 2023, over 1.1 million Americans had died, and heated debates over masks, vaccines, and government restrictions opened deep societal divides. Some argued for individual freedoms, while others urged collective responsibility in the face of a global health threat. Smartphone footage of empty streets, closed businesses, and balcony sing-alongs captured both the despair of lockdowns and the unexpected moments of hope. Communities came together in creative ways, sharing messages of support, with people singing, clapping, or even dancing from their balconies to stay connected. Despite the fear and isolation, these acts of solidarity proved that even in the darkest times, humanity sought connection. The pandemic left a lasting impact on global society, changing how we live, work, and interact in ways that will be felt for generations to come. These 10 events, captured in photos, are lessons in courage, complacency, and resilience. Progress is fragile, and vigilance is the price of freedom. How will future generations remember our crises? The answer lies in what we choose to document and share. Stay curious, stay informed. If this journey moved you, subscribe for more. Hit the bell to stay updated.